This is the ABA's first episode. This is a 2018 season preview. We will be previewing all 30 teams before the season begins. We have taken the teams at the end of the 2018 season, run back the clocks to the beginning of the year, made some trades with those assets to better fit our team's trajectory and mold and build. And then we have done some signings and then some pick trades and some extensions and cuts and so on, and we have built rotations to complete a full season with all positions, starters and backups, and even further reserves to build a team that's going to make it through the season, have enough games, have enough minutes, and we're finally here. Every team is happy to start the season where they are. The only thing that's going to change and make any moves now is to progress the season and see where teams go. So we are going to preview all the teams that we've built because they are not the same. And before we start the season, let's run through them to be more familiar with what we have built and what to expect as the season starts this Wednesday. This upcoming Tuesday. So first, let's go with the 76ers, the 2K. I would go in order of cities, but this 2K league sorts the teams by their team name, which I guess makes sense for the fans that are unfamiliar, not as in-depth. So we're going to view the teams, and I'll cover what changes have been made and just give my opinions on where they're going and what to expect this year and moving forward. So the first one is the Philadelphia 76ers. This starts with a bit of a shock. Glaring right in the open, you see that Brandon Ingram is now a 76er. Right now in 2020, he's averaging 25 a game and I think 6 or 7 rebounds, doing amazing. He's going to be an all-star on the Pelicans, but now he is on the Sixers. So the 76ers bring in Brandon Ingram. They dish out Robert Covington. They dish out Marco Bellinelli and some other players. They traded low. They bought low on Brandon Ingram, and it's going to pay off. So Philly has this stellar big three. All these guys are young. Simmons, Ingram, and Embiid. You can't get much better than that. You have defense, you have offense, you have everything. Very balanced. Those guys are just going to dominate. So this roster is good in 2018. Obviously, you have J.J. Redick on a one-year deal who the Sixers brought in. You have a young Saric. Embiid is healthy. The bench is highlighted by Damari Carroll, Ersan Ilyasova, really nice bench pieces here for a year. Amir Johnson as well. Maybe not so much playing time for Markelle Fultz, who is the number 1 overall pick this year. He didn't play that many games because he was hurt, but a very good starting lineup. And this team, which has been very bad, is looking primed to make a playoff run in 2018. So the Sixers, of course, again with Markelle Fultz, this is sort of his second chance because the Sixers won't give up on him here, hopefully, as they did in real life. He has moved on to Orlando. They still retain him here. He might be their point guard of the future, but very solid. You have shooting all around here, which is what they missed. Defense has taken a slight hit with no Rocco, but wow, this is an amazing team, led by Simmons, Ingram, and Embiid, all under contract for the near future. Amazing that these guys are back-to-back picks, now they're on the same team. Mock drafts had Ingram going to Philly originally, and he ends up in Philly now. Pretty crazy stuff. Let's move to the Milwaukee Bucks. This is pre-MVP Giannis, but he is coming. He is very dominant, as you can see. So the Bucks dish out they bring in John Collins, very young forward, and Courtney Lee, very good scorer that year, for Malcolm Brogdon and Jabari Parker. The feeling here is that the Bucks really need a big man, and they definitely have guards, as you can see. And Antetokounmpo brings the scoring, so why need Brogdon for the bench? We need a really good big man, and they finally get it here pretty easily in John Collins. Very nice young player. Jabari Parker's been injury prone. He wouldn't contribute much to this team. For 2018, he would be holding the back, so why not get a great score off the bench? You have your Bledsoe at the point, Middleton, great shooter, Antetokounmpo, all-around player. Now you have a big man presence that you can dish it down to, and John Henson's still filling up the center spot. Not that much room to improve on the bench because of cap restrictions. Just in 2018, moving forward, maybe able to make some moves with Courtney Lee, a really good bench veteran scorer. We still have Maker and Zeller. Jason Terry is still here in his final season, ironically. The bench is pretty weak. Courtney Lee will take a heavy role off this bench, going to be a big-time scorer. These are okay role players, not great. Starting lineup really makes up for it, and John Collins is in his rookie year here. The Chicago Bulls. They are very poor. Zach LaVine is their best player, but he won't be playing this year, and Lauri Markkanen's only a rookie. They did extend LaVine, though, so they'll be having him for the future. The Bulls have made a big trade with the Knicks, as you can see, because of Lance Thomas. Frank Ntilikina is here. Noah Vonleh's here. Damian Dotson's here. Even Joakim Noah is here. I think he was on the Knicks that year. They're basically swapping timelines. The Bulls want to be more patient because they're younger and they realize LaVine and Markkanen need development. So the Bulls are looking for better picks in a rebuild, and they have their own pick, and they have Portland's first-round picks this year. I expect the Bulls to not make the playoffs, finish pretty close to the bottom. A successful season would be if Lauri Markkanen could develop into a Rookie of the Year candidate. Would be pretty good. Moving forward, it looks like Chris Dunn will be their point guard. Ntilikina, whoever performs better. You got offense here, you got defense here. Whoever's going to develop quicker. Maybe they move on from one. LaVine here. Practically no small forward on this team. Power forward, you have Markkanen and Bobby Portis. If he can stay quality, might continue to be their center. But this team is just loaded with guys on bad contracts, and they're trying to really just rebuild with as much young talent as they can. I forgot what I did here. I am unsure. One sec. I made an accidental mistake. Who did I move? Chris Dunn a minute. Okay. Actually, let me go back. I forgot to do this. The Bucks. I expect the Bucks to make the playoffs, but not go much further because their team is pretty playoff caliber, but not really conference final worthy unless Giannis does something miraculous. Better things are in order for this team in the future. And then the Sixers, I expect this team to make the playoffs, and it would be a great goal if they can reach the conference finals with a very, very good starting lineup. If they can do that, that's a success right there. Moving forward, the Cavaliers, speaking of conference finals, this team went on to the NBA Finals from the Eastern Conference. So the Cavs have upgraded with defense over offense. They've brought in Jeff Teague. They've brought in Marvin Williams, and especially the big name is DeAndre Jordan. You don't see Kevin Love here. And you don't see... who else was the big name? Guys that Cleveland dished out. Rodney Hood isn't here. Oh, J.R. Smith isn't here. as well. And no more George Hill. So this team is just, what they're really trying to do is go all or nothing for LeBron. This is LeBron's last year in Cleveland. Probably. I can't see him re-signing. But they're going to go all or nothing. They're making a great push. They have a very good center protecting the rim in DeAndre Jordan. They have Jeff Teague, who's a much better improvement at the point guard position. Let Clarkson just be a scorer. Marvin's a quality veteran. And then this bench. This is a very good bench. Larry Nance, Tristan Thompson, both quality big men. Jeff Green has the veteran presence and can score. Korver is one of the best three-point shooters of this generation. Calderon, backup point guard. That's honestly fine. They have point guards up top in the starters. Bench, I mean, Al Jefferson was a great signing. He can probably bring in some good playoff minutes. This team really needs to reach the conference finals if they want to be successful, because this is LeBron's year. If they win the finals, that'd be amazing, considering their team is probably the weakest in LeBron's second tenure in Cleveland. But all or nothing, very nice move with DeAndre Jordan, good bench. This team doesn't really care about salary or next year because they still are retaining all their other veteran pieces. We'll evaluate that next year. Let's move forward with the Celtics. The Celtics have dished out Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, and Marcus Morris for Will Barton, Jeremy Grant, Malik Beasley, and Wilson Chandler. So, in that sense, they're sort of upgrading at other positions and other needs by sacrificing what they're in surplus of in terms of guards, young talent, and scoring. They've spread the wealth, let's say, and they're mainly trying to move quicker with better role players, as I just initiated. And what I mean by quicker is those guys were developing. Will Barton's developed, Wilson Chandler is developed, Malik Beasley's good and young, and then you have Jeremy Grant off the bench, who's probably as good as he can be in his prime. Just be better, because you have Kyrie and you have Al Horford and you have Marcus Smart and you very young Tatum. So take advantage, be good. Irving and Barton, nice scoring combo. Let Tatum develop and thrive. He's a small forward. Wilson Chandler, they go small here, but he can probably play tall considering Al Horford's defense. Marcus Smart plays a ton of minutes as the combo guard off the bench. Nice to see him around. Beasley can score. Harris is a veteran. Grant provides sort of the opposite of Chandler. You get some defense if you need to fill in. Backup power forward, Greg Monroe and Aaron Baines. Really good backup centers. They have great centers on this team. And then not much else. This team is trying to win now, win quicker because of Kyrie. This is Kyrie's like one of his best years. This team made the conference finals in real life without Kyrie. If they can make it with Kyrie, that would be a tremendous accomplishment in the stacked East. What did I do again? Oh my god. Boston. 32. Okay. Let's go to the Clippers. And oh my god, I forgot how good this team was. Are you ready? This is scary. Unbelievable. So they have Chris Paul, Rajon Rondo, Tim Hardaway Jr., Kevin Love, DeMarcus Cousins, Derek Favors, and Mason Plumlee. And they have gotten rid of all of these very good mix and matched, washed and young and old role players. Like no Patrick Beverley, no Avery Bradley, no Austin Rivers, no Tobias Harris, no Danilo Gallinari, and no Montrezl Harrell. What's unbelievable about that is they had all those players at one time in 2018 and didn't go much elsewhere. So they were able to trade away their future pieces for players that are ready to contend now, and they're just saying, let's get all these guys that are really good for 1 year and move on. We'll worry about contracts next year. This might be the finals frontrunner, I'll say. They have one really good chance to win it all, and I didn't even mention Lou Williams. So Chris Paul was a very good point guard this year. Lou Williams, amazing scorer. Tim Hardaway, a great shooter, stretches the floor. Kevin Love and DeMarcus Cousins. I don't even know if you would call this like a big 3 or 4, but Very, very good starting lineup. So balanced, so dominant. They do everything in this 1 through 5. Defensive players, offensive players, and very, very good shooting. Rondo's a backup point guard is a gem. Derek Favors off the bench. I don't know how you accomplish that, but Derek Favors and Mason Plumlee, these are probably the best backup bigs in the league because they would both start on like half the teams we just mentioned. Um, Not much else on the bench. That's fine. Starting lineup is stacked. Bench unit doesn't look too bad at all with Rondo and Favors. This team should reach the NBA Finals. The Memphis Grizzlies have decided to move on, and as they did in real life, they're rebuilding. A bunch of young players are on the team. Let's get rid of Marc Gasol, and Mike Conley's on IR. He doesn't play much, so let's just save him and let other guys get minutes. So they bring in DeJounte Murray to play the point and be the successor for Conley, probably. They bring in Kelly Oubre, very nice young player, and Otto Porter. That's a very good return for an aging Marc Gasol. You get 2 quality starters. They get rid of Tyreke Evans as well, who had a really good 1-year stretch. So they're being smart. Get rid of Evans, who's 1 year. Get rid of Gasol, who's 1 year. Trade for guys that have probably potential up to 10 years. Really smart playing by the Grizzlies. They got solid return. They just need a smooth rebuild, and they probably have 1, 2, 3 of the positions already filled out. Memphis does have their first pick, so that'll come in handy because I don't think this team's making the playoffs, and that's okay. They're in a rebuild. There's not much else here. They have some interesting veterans all throughout this team if they want to make a trade, even though the team is a nice quality fit. Marcin Gortat, really nice center as well, that they picked up in a separate trade with Washington. And yeah, there's not much else in this team. This team, I guess, if they finish with a top 5 pick, they'd be very happy, and they should. And that's what they got in real life. Let's move forward with the Atlanta Hawks. Speaking of the top 5, I expect this team to be in the top 5. The Hawks are rebuilding after many, many good playoff seasons. They have a nice starting core, and they're looking for just one more star in next year's draft. Dennis Schroeder is probably their best player in this year. They have their young point guard. Luke Kennard was a really nice pickup from Detroit. They were able to improve Detroit. We'll talk about that later. But Kennard, nice scorer. He'll be the shooting guard. This is a great combo. They balance each other off each other well. Taurean Prince. Oh my God, Taurean Prince, very nice wing who can score and defend. Just a great young player. Marquise Chris, if he can further develop, he might be their starting power forward / center. It was a nice pickup. Rebuilding piece. And then Julius Randle. No John Collins. Let's get better. Let's go big, I guess. Let's send John Collins to a team that can probably benefit him as not a number 1, because Julius Randle is probably going to be a number 1. We really like him here. The bench, nothing else. Guys that played 1 season for a terrible Atlanta team. Trevor Booker is a good fit on this team if he's going to play somewhere else. They can trade him this season. Plumlee and Muscala have terrible contracts. The rest of this team is pretty garbage. Daniel House probably going to be a lot better next year, and the rest of the team will fall. They don't have much in contracts because they have young players. They'll spend in free agency. I expect this team to finish in the top 5, and it would be good for them if Randle or Schroeder can make an all-star team, just getting a ton of minutes and looks. Let's move to the Miami Heat. They have made some moves, and you don't see Dwayne Wade here. Oh my God. That's because Dwayne Wade didn't fit Miami's mold, which is try to just use the bit they can. No, Miami's smarter. They realize they have rotational pieces and good young players. So they send him out. They send out Goran Dragic, trying to get an upgrade, and Bam Adebayo, because they want more scoring. So they go with Aaron Gordon probably as their number 2 next to Whiteside. This is a really athletic, young, talented big man group they have here. And they also traded for Fred VanVleet, who will be the point guard of the future over Dragic to complement. They have nice scoring in this group. All these guys like fill in the stat sheet. For this year at least, they have Tyler Johnson, off a bad contract, is getting a lot of minutes for them. Wayne Ellington, Josh Richardson, really good young piece. So they have 4 pieces of their, I guess, semi-rebuild, because they're still competitive. As you can see, these guys are very balanced. Oh, Winslow, I completely forget. It's hard to remember him. Maybe that is it. They have VanVleet, Josh Richardson, Justice Winslow, Aaron Gordon, Whiteside. Let those guys develop. Very nice starting 5. And you have very good, I will say very good, veterans around them, like Robin Lopez, James Johnson, Wayne Ellington, Mario Hezonja, still young, a nice upside piece. This team does have upside on a decent roster, and that's all they're trying to add to, and just be competitive and develop that lineup and maybe make a big splash, because this is a huge market. The Miami Heat, I would project them, I'm unsure, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but if they do, that'd be a great win, because they have a balanced group and they're restricted in cap. Salary cap. The Charlotte Hornets are in a rebuild. First thing you're looking for is Kemba Walker. He's not here. They were smart to move away from him. Hornets got nothing from him in real life. Here, they get a big return. Patrick Beverley is all the way down here because he doesn't play games, but next year he'll be there. He'll be effective. And then they have OG Anunoby down here, who is a nice small forward for the future. And then the big acquisition, Montrezl Harrell, very good energizer, big man who can fill it up. He's just not there yet, but he does complement this rebuild very nicely. So they're just trying to rebuild with assets, and they have a good return for Walker. Satoransky and Lamb are two, and Kid Gilchrist are all veterans who can fill a role. No reason to move on from them because they are okay. They just need to upgrade those positions. Dwight Howard is still here. I don't know if they'll move on from Dwight Howard. This team could be interestingly competitive, even though this team is clearly rebuilding. They have guys all around, like Bjelica and Dieng and Tyus Jones, Cody Zeller. They have like good young players and then some okay veterans. It's kind of a strange fit. It will finish the season. They can probably evaluate in the off season or later in the season what they're trying to do with these individual players. Dwight Howard, I expect to get traded by the end of the season because he can really help a contender, and he's not doing much here. If he can make an all-star team and he stays here, great. He should. This team is in a rebuild. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but I do expect them to knock off some opponents throughout the year because they do have scoring on this team. If anything, they can shoot. The Utah Jazz are pretty interesting. They're going for it. Young Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert's healthy. They have traded for a bunch of one-year players that the Knicks mainly didn't want, and they tried to get some rotational pieces that'll help out their squad make the playoffs, because the Jazz have a really nice playoff window, but they really need to improve in this Donovan Mitchell rookie to 4-year window. So Reggie Jackson is in. No Ricky Rubio. Jackson provides more scoring, which is what they want here. Mitchell will hold the ball more. He's a very good young piece. Developing superstar. Rudy Gobert, star big man, can really rebound and defend the rim. DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year. Joe Ingles, right here, is a nice veteran piece that complements everybody. And then the one-year guys I'm talking about are Jarrett Jack, Doug McDermott, Udo, Jameer Nelson. They have an interesting 3-point guard rotation in Jameer Nelson, Jarrett Jack, and Reggie Jackson. They'll all just get limited minutes throughout the season because they can't They all, I think, have like 50 games played. They all got hurt or didn't play, so it's a nice rotation. They'll always have a quality point guard and backup. Um, Big acquisition, Danilo Gallinari will be here next year because he doesn't play that much this year. Again, Utah's trying to develop and stay competitive year to year, but they made a strong push at all these one-year guys. Zach Collins, nice developing power forward. And Avery Bradley. You can't forget Avery Bradley's doing the shooting guard and small forward off the bench. So, yeah, this team should make the playoffs. They have definitely improved with what they had and moved on from some of their other players. They're just trying to acquire as many great players as possible because they won't sign many guys here, and they don't have as many draft assets. And those picks won't be that valuable. The Sacramento Kings, they have moved on from Zach Randolph, who was here for like a year. Didn't really make sense. They moved him to get younger, and they've added, where is he? He's hurt this year, I think. Jabari Parker. So that's a nice upside pick because they needed a power forward and some young players as opposed to a 36-year-old starting center. So they're trying to have young core and build further through the draft. De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield. I'll throw Jabari Parker in the mix as well. Really good starting three. Bohan. He's kind of older, but really good young group. You have a great passing defensive point guard. You have an amazing shooter and scorer in Buddy Hield. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a nice Swiss Army knife who can play multiple positions. Taj Gibson, a veteran, can just stay here probably for a few years to fill a need, help them not be that terrible with what they have, because they should try to win with these young guys. Willie Cauley-Stein is their center. He won it out in real life. I don't really care what he does here. J.R. Smith is here. Channing Frye is here, both from Cleveland. They will make this team interesting and not just be full of young guys. And also Amon Shumpert as well. So I guess being competitive, because they do have talent on this team, probably 10 good players, but this team won't make the playoffs, and they just want to get a really high pick. They would hope to get a really high pick so they can get a big man for sure. The New York Knicks, yeah, they still have Porzingis. That is disgusting. Anyway, they don't have Tim Hardaway Jr., as we mentioned. The guy just chucks and wasn't really helping their mold. The Knicks got away from one-year guys, very smart, to get a bunch of young rotational pieces, because the Knicks haven't done that for years. They're trying to be better with a young, fuller squad. They've brought in guys from a bunch of teams. Very nice additions here. So Jerrion Grant is their young point guard still, but he is starting. Dylan Brooks from Memphis, very nice scorer. He's young. Denzel Valentine, small forward, hasn't done much in the NBA due to injuries, but he is here for the Knicks. They'll be able to retain a well-liked player. Could probably play small forward for them if they don't draft anybody else. Kristaps Porzingis, all-star forward. Enes Kanter, very nice. This is a great combination of offense, defense, and some quality rebounding. Emmanuel Mudiay is still here. They picked up Alec Burks. They picked up Terrence Ferguson. Jay Crowder, what a great piece. He can make this team competitive. He'll probably start over Valentine soon. Quinn's still here. Dante Exum they picked up as an upside play. So yeah, just get upside guys, get younger, but just always moving forward slowly and retaining your players and not making your Latvian all-star unhappy. They will probably not make the playoffs, and that's okay because they're not there yet, but I do feel better about this group. I would feel a lot better if they drafted a point guard in next year's draft, and luckily the draft has many of those. Let's move forward to the LA Lakers, who look very, very different, but in a great way. So they don't have Brandon Ingram, they don't have Julius Randle, they don't have Brook Lopez, and they don't have Isaiah Thomas or Josh Hart. And when I say that, you think that's a very good team, and it is, because the Lakers just were a wild mess who couldn't develop, and there were trade rumors all the time, and whatever they were trying to do, it wasn't working. But look at who we've brought in. They brought in Malcolm Brogdon. He's going to be their shooting guard of the future. They bring in, wow, Pascal Siakam. Probably makes the Brandon Ingram trade worth it to get someone just on the same level. He's not anything in 2018. This is his second year, but he is a phenomenal star player for them coming up. Bam Adebayo they picked up, who's really developing at the time of this video. Wasn't supposed to be that big, but he's a very nice centerpiece, going to be their center next to Siakam. Those guys can do it all, especially defend the rim and score. Malik Monk is here, a nice upside play. Charlotte moved on for him so that they can get... Who did they get in that deal? They got Zubac. Lakers traded their center, I believe, to get him. And then Thomas Bryant. So, yeah, the rest of the guys in the fill-in guys don't really matter. Olynyk is a good piece to have, and it'll keep them competitive. Evan Turner will. They're using their salary cap to pick up great players as potential trade assets. This will make this team better. Iguodala, the best one of that example. KCP's still here for 1 year, but fuck that guy. They do have Kyle Kuzma and Lonzo Ball still. So you're looking at Lonzo, Malcolm Brogdon. The small forward is iffy because Kuzma and Siakam practically play the same position, and Kuzma would be a very big small forward. So I expect him to be traded. And then they have Siakam, and then they have Bam Adebayo. And they have, next year, a lot of salary to spend in free agency. And I think it's kind of clear who they are going to go after, who they signed that free agency. The Lakers have a very good young group. They're going for talent, of course, and upside. They are looking to build a very good, attractive team with their young guys. It's a very good window because all these guys are young and aligning for a nice destination for free agents in a big market. And yeah, they did move on from Ingram, Randall, and Brook, and Thomas, and Hart because they want to get rid of one of your guys to make this team a lot more attractive. And somehow that full Lakers team didn't make the playoffs. Don't ask me about that. This team won't make the playoffs, and they do not have their first round pick. So they're trying to be even better. Who has that first round pick? I believe that is Philadelphia. The Orlando Magic. Yes, a mediocre team for practically the entire decade, but they're really trying to get there in this ABA. Now you see where Goran Dragic is. Now you see where Dwayne Wade is. And you see they've added Al-Farouq Aminu. And they've retained their probably best pieces like Vucevic, Fournier, Simmons, Augustine, and Ross. All those guys are veterans matched with other quality veterans. The Orlando Magic have gotten rid of their talented youth, Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon, because for some reason the Orlando Magic can't develop their young guys, and they like to have a team with veterans and young guys not having a clear window. That's why they're mediocre. So they're trying to, as very well as they can, make a playoff push with a talented roster, because if they don't, they really have no future at all. This is going to be very ugly if they don't become a consistent playoff team, because the whole team is pretty much like 28 and older. But this team should, because you have Goran Dragic, a nice scoring point guard. Evan Fournier is a great shooting guard. I don't know about this fit. They're both slow. They're pretty much the same, but they do play opposite positions. Hopefully they can become a nice fit in a big offense like this. Simmons is a very good role player. He plays big. Al-Farouq Aminu, they finally get some defense out of the power forward position, which they've been lacking with Aaron Gordon, sacrificing scoring. But Nikola Vucevic, very good center. This team is going to get better, these five. They should get better. in the next year or two. Um, Dwayne Wade, he's firing that spark off the bench. He plays a decent number of games, not all of them, and he'll come in the playoffs, and he's going to be coming off the bench because that makes him very valuable. Um, and then you have like Mo Spates, a good bench piece. Chandler Parsons plays a little bit. Terrence Ross doesn't play much this year, which really sucks. But apart from this bench being, well, this part is weak. The big bench guys are weak. They might pick someone up. I could potentially see them starting D Wade and moving on from Fournier to a team that really needs some scoring, and then acquiring some big men and filling out the roster. But they still have Augustine. That's a very interesting player because he plays a lot of minutes and he's not having a big role. So yeah, I think moves will be made, but they're retaining as many quality assets as possible because we're unsure. They really need to make the playoffs, and if they don't, changes will be made because they can probably get some upside very quickly with this talented group, but ultimately they like to stay together, and D-Wade has to move in Florida. Kind of sucks. Mavericks. No, this is definitely not a good team. They are giving Dirk Nowitzki and JJ Barea, two players who helped them in championships, they're giving them chances to win titles while they still can, because God knows they won't in Dallas, and that's very admirable. So they have Dennis Smith Jr. as their rookie point guard, probably going to score a ton. Harrison Barnes is their big acquisition in free agency. Pau Gasol is going to load it up in center for them, never played for them. Bryn Form's nice young piece, could probably develop into a starter. A bunch of guys on this team that are kind of stuck in the middle. They don't have much upside, but they are NBA players, and they are expensive. Ryan Anderson was a nice addition to a team that needed to get better because it was just god-awful, and he's a lot of money, so they picked him up in a Barea deal to just give them something. Dwight Powell's another bench piece, is okay. Nerlens Noel, he won't play much for them, but he should be their center moving forward. So yeah, this team is pretty far behind in a rebuild because they don't know how to draft that well, and they made some ugly free agent signings. This team needs to get a good draft pick because we know what they got for that draft pick, and that was Luka. They would hope to get him. They need a great draft pick, and they have their draft pick, their first rounder. So they got to get it. This team can't really get much worse. They'll be in the bottom of the pack. The Brooklyn Nets, they are looking pretty good, even though this team will probably finish in the bottom three. This is very early, considering time-wise, for D'Angelo Russell, Caris LeVert, Joe Harris, Sabonis, and Jared Allen. All these guys are going to get so much better in 2 years, or a year at least, to start out. So no Spencer Dinwiddie, because their two best players are point guards. We'll talk about him soon. And they pick up Domantas Sabonis. Very nice piece for Dinwiddie as a big man, because they needed a power forward. They're still lacking one. They're trying to build with good spread starting lineup. That's where it starts. They have the point guard. They have a nice shooting guard. They play with each other in real life. And they were to much success where you have leadership and, I guess, passing and scoring, but then you also have just a shooter on the wing. Nice spacing. A quality all-around player in Caris LeVert. Domantas Sabonis provides that upside post-scoring and rebounding that they really need. And then Jared Allen defends the rim and just attacks on alley-oops from all these guys. This is a great starting lineup moving forward. If we're able to retain Harris, Corey Joseph is a very nice backup point guard who should probably be moved to another team for some upside because he's a quality player. Stauskas upside, still here. Alan Crabb is on this team because he's a lot of money, and it wouldn't make sense to move him. Just keep him to be decent. Rashawn Holmes, a very nice energizer backup center. And then, of course, Big Ja. They might move one of those guys, considering now they have about 4 centers. And they need to fill out at other positions. We'll monitor that. I don't think this team will make the playoffs. They don't have their first round pick, which really sucks. And Brooklyn, their first round pick, I will tell you, is in the hands of... Looking for Brooklyn. Where's the Brooklyn pick? Cleveland. Oh boy. So Cleveland might lose LeBron, but then pick up a top 3, 5, whatever player. Maybe even number 1 pick. Could be the number 1 pick. This team, I would like to get D'Angelo Russell an all-star appearance this year because he has a heavy load. And then next year, we should be bound for the playoffs. What did I do this time? Oh my god. Screwing it up. 26, 25. The Denver Nuggets. A lot of changes here too. But good changes. And changes so that they can be better in the long term. They sacrificed their short term. No Will Barton, no Malik Beasley, no veteran Wilson Chandler, no veteran Mason Plumlee. So what do they get in return for that? Well, they get Terry Rozier, who's a great point guard. They really want him to be the complement to Murray and just always have a quality point guard playing for them. And he's a really good backup point guard. They have Rodney Hood, very nice scorer off the bench. That's his role in the NBA. The Nuggets, they did have Rodney. No, they didn't. I'm sorry. But they do pick up Rodney Hood, and they keep him for a nice backup role as opposed to having all those guys. They could just have one. And then big acquisition, Jaylen Brown, because there was something missing. There still is in real life. They have these nice, sort of small guards who are very offensive heavy. They have a center who's very offensive. They have a nice veteran bench, but where's the athleticism when it comes here in Jaylen Brown, who will be their, I'm going to say, second best player in a few years, will just really be fitting them nicely when they have to go against other great small forwards. They won't have that loop now. So, great guards, very nice young guards that complement each other so well. And they have Jaylen Brown, who I just ranted on. Trey Lyles, there's a weakness here in power forward, but as the 5th starter, he's more than fine because he was a lottery pick and he can rebound. Jokic, big star Jokic, offense machine, juggernaut, can score, can rebound, and he's the best passing big man probably in the last 10 years. So he complements these 3 guys very nicely. Rozier, such a great bench player. Rodney Hood, filling up the scoring. Won't play as much because of Harrison Brown, but will play for backup. And then they have a nice defensive big man that they signed for a lot of money, which they had because their team's so young. Ian Mahinmi. Daniel Tice is here. Awful picture. Torrey Craig, bench piece, upside. Paul Millsap doesn't play that much, but that's what I should have mentioned earlier. So Paul Millsap fills in it here, and it's great. Nothing short of a great starting lineup. Millsap is expensive and not playing through his contract very well, but that's where they have the power forward. He just happens to be hurt this year. This is a great starting lineup and very good bench pieces. So now this team is stacked, and they have a great window to compete because their guys are young and inexpensive. Don't know if they'll be able to sign many players, but they will have a phenomenal, I'm going to say 3-year window until contracts are going to have to just, that's what they got. Brown, Jokic, Murray, etc. They're just going to have to run through there. There may be too much talent on this team in a few years, so they can trade it. This team should definitely make the playoffs. And if they can get to the semifinals, that'd be a great accomplishment because the team is so young. And didn't make the playoffs in real life, I don't believe. Let me see, we have 10 teams left. I just need a quick pause to text someone. But I hope this is giving you a great recap in this video. Okay, so the Indiana Pacers. No Sabonis, but here is Dinwiddie, because they needed a point guard, and they moved Darren Collison away. So, Dinwiddie and Oladipo, great scoring, both great passers. Gonna be a nice compliment. They play tall. And then you have Wesley Matthews, a very nice addition because he's a nice three who can space and score. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson gets more minutes because Brooklyn wasn't fitting his window, but he's going to be much more valuable to the Indiana Pacers. He seems like a great guy, and Indiana is a very loyal market, so I think he'll stick around. It was a nice addition from the same trade with Dinwiddie. And then Miles Turner, a guy who can really block shots and score in the post and shoot threes. He does those things very well. The bench, Thad Young still here. He might be able to start, but Hollis-Jefferson provides a little more energy to starting, and Thad Young would probably just weigh them down. But he's a nice bench player for sure as a sixth man because Hollis-Jefferson would just fill in. Anyway, E'Twaun Moore, they picked him up as well for Bojan Bogdanovic. E'Twaun Moore, a great scorer off the bench, going to be able to play shooting guard and small forward for them. There's not much here except if you're looking down the line. I guess Looney and Glenn Robinson, both from the Warriors, are going to be nice bench pieces that could develop into quality starters down the line if they retain them. Indiana, small market team, they need to develop Oladipo, need to develop Turner further, and Dinwiddie. This team is looking better. They should make the playoffs. Despite no Collison, Lance, and Bojan and Sabonis. The team's looking very different. They just kind of needed to get fresh faces. As much as Darren Collison looks really good, Lance Stevenson was a nice bench player, Bojan was their great scorer, and Sabonis was a very good young piece. That team wasn't really going anywhere past the semifinals. So this team, some new fresh faces, some younger faces, are going to be good. Here's what we're really excited about. The New Orleans Pelicans. Here's Kemba Walker. I know you've been looking for him. Here he is. That means no Drew Holiday. They go with Kemba Walker as a guy who can probably take less scoring and more passing and I'm not going to say defense. Just a lot more passing and leadership. He's a better scorer. But he doesn't need the ball. He doesn't need to score. He complements Big AD very well. They bring in Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pacers, as I just mentioned, and Tobias Harris is in because how'd they get him? They had DeMarcus Cousins, ironically enough. He wasn't a good fit next to Davis, so they needed a power forward, and they get one in Tobias Harris from the Clippers, who see as more of a, I guess, a 2019-2020 guy. In 2018 wasn't getting much done, but in DeMarcus Cousins, that's the time to compete. So that was a great trade. Let's talk about the Pelicans. Very great point guard, all-star point guard. Garrett Temple, a nice young shooter, can space. Bojan Bogdanovic can do all the things you need him to well, like passing, rebounding, scoring, defense. Shooting is his prowess. So he's a great small forward next to these star guard and big man. Excellent small forward on this team. Tobias Harris provides so much extra that they don't really need. He's such an addition to what this team already has in star power. Nice scorer. And Anthony Davis, the star big man, best big man in basketball. He's phenomenal here. Tony Parker. This is the international bench. Tony Parker's French. He's a nice veteran, and you're putting him on the bench. It's a great move because he's an excellent backup point guard, you would imagine, right? Nick Batum signed in free agency, cut by Charlotte off that big contract, was in a better one here. He's French. Nikola Mirotic is from Spain, and Bismack Biyombo is from Africa. So, I mean, I did start Batum earlier, but wasn't a shooter for this group, and he's a nice, can do it all, so let's put him on the bench. And they still have Mirotic, who is a great bench scorer. Kicked out of the starting lineup, was much better as a bench player. And then Biyombo, between Davis and Biyombo, they're always going to be able to defend the rim. Ian Clark might get moved because he barely gets minutes. These guys are completely irrelevant down here. It's okay because 1 through 9 is very solid. So the idea here with the Pelicans being very aggressive is they probably can't sign anybody, and in the worst market in basketball, and they really need to get better if they're going to win with Anthony Davis because they were just wasting him. So get rid of Rondo, get rid of Holiday, get rid of Moore, get rid of Cousins. That team did make the playoffs, but let's get more upside. Let's bring in Kemba. Let's bring in Tony. Let's bring in Bohan, Tobias. Those guys fit the Davis role better. The other guys were probably just loaded with scoring talent. This team is much more balanced. And in this year, this team should get to the conference finals. They are that talented. If they don't get to the semis, this is a big failure because this team is very good, 1 through 9. The Detroit Pistons, I love what the Pistons have done. I really do. For one simple reason, Ricky Rubio, Reggie Jackson, and Blake Griffin flamed out in real life, and they're still not getting it done together because Reggie Jackson is just completely underperforming. He's not that good a point guard. And yeah, so Ricky Rubio is going to do all the passing and pick and roll the shit out of defenses with Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. And then you have excellent shooting, 3-point shooting, I'll be more specific, Bazemore, Bullock, Galloway, O'Neal, Jerebko. Rebounding, 3-point shooting. That's how they're going to score. And they're going to be able to defend the rim because Rubio gets steals, Griffin gets steals, plays the perimeter well, he's athletic, Drummond gets blocks like you wouldn't believe. They get better rotation guys. However, I must say they can't waste their window because they have 2 all-star big men who really need to be interesting. And I don't mean make the playoffs. I mean be in heavy contention. There's not much you can do because Pistons are so fucking bad at drafting and developing. But 1 through 10 is pretty strong. This is a nice backup core. Very nice balance in scoring and rebounding. So yeah, I don't know what much they can do because Blake and Drummond are very expensive. But if the mold doesn't work that well, you can trade one of these guys and pick up a very nice wing. And then you have a nice 1-3-5 situation, however you choose to go. Yeah, don't waste Blake's window because he's not healthy much and he's on a terrible deal. You've done a great job with Ricky Rubio now being the point guard. And that team for this season should they should make the playoffs. If they don't, with these 2 guys in the East, that's a tremendous failure. Detroit does not have their first round pick, and that hurts, but see what you can do in free agency. The Toronto Raptors, not the championship Raptors, but I think they made the semifinals, this team. Got smoked, but they were the 1 seed, ironically enough. So here, no Isaiah Thomas, I'm sorry, I messed up. No Pascal Siakam because he's gonzo, and no Fred VanVleet. So sacrifice the future because they'd have DeRozan, and they have Ibaka and Valanciunas. So while you're good, be better, right? They get great rotational pieces like Marco Bellinelli off the bench, was so electric for Philly in real life, and here he'll do just the same for Toronto because they need a bench dynamite, I'll say. Nick Young they acquired just for a mere draft pick, who's just gonna provide some scoring. They pick up Zubac for Anunoby because they needed a big man. Hoyle and Zubac, nice interesting combo for when Valanciunas could probably get moved to another team. I did mention Isaiah Thomas, spoiler. He doesn't play much, but in the playoffs, that's why they got him. They traded practically Brandon Ingram for a heavy package, including Isaiah Thomas, because this Raptors team feels this is definitely the best chance to win. Obviously, they don't have Kawhi, and they won't get Kawhi. And there's not much of a future because they're older. But if they can bring up Isaiah Thomas, former All-NBA second All-Star guard, in the playoffs, he'd be very interesting as a six-man. They'd be so much better once the playoffs start. Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, I don't want to break them up because they were such good friends. Rocco, they needed a small forward in my opinion. I think they were starting Anunoby, and you can't really do that. So Robert Covington provides such great three-point shooting, which they lack in DeRozan, Ibaka, Valanciunas, and he spreads, and then he also plays defense, which is something that they probably need in the small forward position if they're going to compete in the East with LeBron and Tatum and so on. Very nice, balanced starting lineup, very strong. This is a good bench. These guys can probably start for the Chicago Bulls. This is a good bench. Nice young backup point guard. Good bigs. Good three-point shooting. Great microwave off the bench, I'll say. DeRozan's a star. I think that Valanciunas is really good this year. This team needs to get to the NBA Finals because they're the most talented, I believe, in the East, and they're the most competitive, trading away their future. They're risking a lot, so this team should get to the Finals. If they don't, I'm going to call that a failure because what they practically years and years in the playoffs without getting to the Finals. They'd really need to do it here. I think they can because they have a great scoring passing point guard, excellent scorer in DeRozan. Ibaka defends and stretches. Valanciunas, a phenomenal post scorer and rebounder. Here's a scary fucking team, the Houston Rockets. You could say front runner. I would designate that to the Clippers, but just because they're so invested, but this team is scary. So there's no Chris Paul and there's no PJ Tucker. They were very good in real life, but you can probably do better. And with James Harden, you want to do better because he hasn't made the finals ever. They definitely can here. So no Chris Paul in that terrible contract. They bring in Drew Holiday, who is much, I'm not going to say much, but he is worse. He is definitely worse than Chris Paul, but moving forward, he's going to have 5 better years than Chris Paul at a better deal. They're going to move Harden to point guard and facilitate in what he does best. And then they're going to say Holiday should defend all the elite scorers. And Holiday should be more worried about scoring, not passing. I agree. Melo's hefty contract is here, but it wasn't doing well for the Thunder. It'll do very well here because he can put it in the bucket for sure. 1 year fine, bad contract the next, whatever. That's next season's problem. Houston has decided that they need to compete heavily this year, and I agree. So they bring in Anthony, they get a scorer, say screw it with the contract, we'll worry about that later. Ariza, phenomenal defender, stretches the floor. They play tall and they play short and they spread the floor. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. That's why Ariza's there for. And the Capella, one-man wrecking crew in the paint, will defend the rim and rebound on a very friendly contract, which is why they were able to pick up Holiday and Anthony. See how that's smart. JJ Barea is here again. We want him to win a ring, so let's bring him on here. He's their backup point guard, and he's very good because he can be starting. Eric Gordon could also be starting, could also be like the third best player on any team, but he's the sixth man here, and he's extremely good for this elite starting group. Eric Gordon is such a problem for opposing defenders. Nene and Mbamute are great defenders and role players off the bench. Joe Johnson, you can't believe, is off the bench. As old as he is, he'll be valuable. And then Pat McCall even kept winning championships. Maybe he'll bring his luck here. So yeah, I would say these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are maybe the best 7. Even better than the Pelicans. Harden's so good. This team needs to make the conference finals, because I'm not sure if getting to the NBA finals is do or die for them. Maybe because Ariza and Anthony get older, and Barea. They would get to the NBA finals. They should get to the NBA finals. And if they don't, it's still okay, but they really want to get there. I will leave it at that. Awesome roster to contend. Very well put together. The Spurs, here's an interesting story. So they still have Kawhi, but he's not playing this year. He's on IR. This is his last year. He's not even on the team here. So what do the Spurs do? They remain competitive. They acquire as many older players that they don't want, because they know Kawhi's back next year and he'll be a beast. He won that championship. The Spurs are looking to just bring in as many ready now win players as they can, and next year they'll evaluate what they need to do to build a better championship caliber roster. But here, Darren Collison, very nice starting point guard, had a very good season. Probably his best. Danny Green is still here. So these guys shoot the fuck out of the ball, and they're really good defenders. It's a nice combo, even though they're not stars. They won't average 15. Rudy Gay probably will. He's their main scorer this year. A very good veteran. Dirk Nowitzki on the Spurs. I make every Mavericks fan puke right now. But if he wants to win, he can go here. He gets a ton of minutes. He starts. And then Marcus Aldridge will be an all-star for them. He's a great big man. They're moving him to the center position. Don't know if that's good or not. Good bench. Marcus Morris, great bench player. Fits the Spurs very well. He's a serious as shit player. Mills, good backup point guard. Norman Powell, nice upside player. Can do very well in the backup rotation. He has a big role. Is this Felicio on his terrible contract? It might be. The team probably does have money, because these guys aren't so expensive. And Kawhi's on their payroll. Shetty Osman, interesting. He might not be here next year because they'll have a logjam at shooting guard. We'll see. And Derek White is still here. He's a big-time future player. He'll probably get moved. But anyway, this is a talented group. This is a playoff roster. They would just like to make some noise. If they can make the semifinals and upset a top seed, that would be very interesting, because they're not built that way. They're just built to get to the playoffs. They're trying to quietly, as I mentioned before, build rotational pieces and be a serious team, so that when Kawhi comes back, they'll be loaded. If the team underperforms, Dirk's moving, Collison's moving. Morris probably not, but we'll see. They're probably going to get moved if they can't get it done. 4 teams. No, I'm sorry. I mentioned 4. There's 6. Bear with me. There was another page. The Suns. They're trying to rack up young talent and fill out a stable roster. They will probably dish their talented guys like T.J. Warren, Dwayne Dedman, and Tyson Chandler at the deadline because they're older veteran. They're not veterans, but they're nice older players that don't fit the timeline that could probably play elsewhere. Even Elfrid Payton. Suns are even worse drafters. but they do have Devin Booker, star Devin Booker. So, Elfrid Payton won't probably be extended. He might be brought back. Is a nice point guard to have here because he's better than whatever Phoenix did have originally. Devin Booker is a star player who just needs more and more draft picks added to the team. Josh Jackson was a high lottery pick. He's underperforming, but he has potential at small forward. He'll play this season. TJ Warren, a nice scorer. He'll keep them competitive. And Dwayne Dedmon, an older center. The bench, this is what you'd expect. These guys aren't bad. These guys are okay. It's just a very weird fit because they're very short and then very tall. But this is what Phoenix ran with, ironically enough. Dragan Bender's a terrible drafted player. Here's Alec Peters. They need to just bring in as many young players as possible because this team needs to start winning in the next few years to save Devin Booker in his prime. They can do it. They just need to throw some. They do have a fuck ton of money. They need to throw money at free agents next year. They need to get a top pick, and they have that top pick. They finished with the first pick in this season and picked Ayton, but I don't know how they'll do here. And then they need to get rid of their good guys at the deadline. That'll help them in the future. I definitely expect this team to finish bottom 5. Not even close to the playoffs. But that's okay. That's what they want to do, and they will get there soon. The Thunder. Where's Tyreke Evans in his 1 year? Here's Tyreke Evans in his 1 year. OKC is dead serious because they have Westbrook, George, and Adams, and they probably only have about 2 years of that. Paul George in Oklahoma City. Okay, so what the Thunder did is they got rid of Melo, but they were the ones that picked up Tucker. They picked up Gerald Green off the bench. They picked up Manu Ginobili from the Spurs because that didn't fit their timeline. Spurs weren't that good. And this is Ginobili's last season. And then, yeah, they got rid of Jeremy Grant, Corey Brewer, guys that they weren't going to keep around because they're future players. They just want to compete better in 2018 and not be killed on the cap. So Westbrook, I believe Westbrook is the MVP. No, he's not. He's a year removed from his MVP. Harden was the MVP. So Westbrook, amazing point guard. Paul George, amazing small forward. Steven Adams, very good center. Tyreke Evans provides that fourth piece that was definitely missing. He had a very nice season. So they'll just, especially PJ Tucker, shooting threes now at the power forward because Adams and George are more than tall. They can stretch with Tucker. Hopefully this team can be much better because Evans is a great star in their starting lineup. No pun intended. Bench is okay. Not good backup bigs. They'll probably get one at the deadline, but to get that playoff roster better. But Felton, okay. Ginobili's good. Gerald Green is good. Their bench is what you'd expect in Oklahoma City, especially with that starting lineup. Another year that Andre Roberson's hurt, I believe. And the bench really doesn't matter after that. This team with Tyreke Evans has a lot of offense. This is such an offensive-dominated team. But they all play good defense. This is the best two-way team in the league, I would say, starting lineup-wise. They want to get to the NBA Finals. I think they can do it because they have 2 All-Stars, maybe 3. They just want to get to the NBA Finals. They want to be closer to the NBA Finals than they were with Melo. In real life, this team with Melo, as it was, got out in the first round despite a 4 seed. They are looking to definitely advance to the conference finals. If they can do that, that's a huge win. Don't expect them to win the championship because Westbrook, but I don't know. If they can do it, that'd be great. They want to make the finals because they never have. I moved something again. Thunder. Oh wow. Okay. We haven't seen the Warriors yet, but they made a move because we didn't want Kevin Durant on that Warriors team and just ruining the league. Move Durant somewhere else. And one of the best young pieces to have at the time was Andrew Wiggins. So not a great trade, but one that definitely made the Warriors and Timberwolves more even. And they needed it for sure. So the Warriors aren't loaded, but maybe the Timberwolves are now. So Kevin Durant is a Minnesota Timberwolf, and that's the most fair because they haven't made the playoffs in I don't think like 14 years. So no Andrew Wiggins, no Jeff Teague, no Taj Gibson, but they do get Durant, and they do get George Hill, and that's a easily plus net plus. Down the line, we might have to adjust this trade in terms of draft picks, but they have a cheap bench. Jamal Crawford, Jordan Bell, Josh Hart, Tim Frazier, Willie Hernangomez. Cheap bench. Good cheap bench. They have 3 All-Stars, no question. And they just want Jimmy Butler to win, and they want Karl Towns to make... To really do something, because he might not be able to in real life. But here, with Butler and Durant, Butler's probably sticking around. He'll probably be much happier without Wiggins. And Towns becomes the third option. But, wow, easily the best trio in the league. Towns is a great big man, one of the best in the league, and they have a guard, a forward, and a center. A very nice veteran point guard who won't have to score as much but can pass. Markieff Morris shoots threes, so that's what you want out of a complimentary player. Great, not great, but good bench. It'll do. Derrick Rose in the playoffs. He can be the starting point guard as well. Oh my god, I didn't even consider that. This is just now. But this team with Durant, Butler, and Towns... it's extremely top heavy, but if you have these 3 players, it's not like you can do much better. There's nothing that 2 of these players would be able to accomplish more than apart from just 3 of them all being together. So this team, things get a lot harder if Towns is paid more. This team needs to make the NBA Finals, and I think they can do it. They have better trio star players, I'll say, than the Rockets, Pelicans, and the Warriors, but their role players are pretty average in the aggregate. The Portland Trailblazers, there's no, they just got rid of a bunch of guys so that they can compete quicker. Because when you have Lillard and McCollum, you should try to win much faster. So they pick up the 1-year Michael Beasley, who is a very nice power forward. Knowing Nurkic will be hurt next year, they want to compete with him. And, yep, big backup center you're looking for him. Brook Lopez is here. The 2 best centers. Best center combo in the league for sure. And Jonathan Isaac is here. Lottery pick who looks very good. This team is sacrificing the future so they can win better now, and I believe they have a better chance of reaching the conference finals because of Beasley, and Ennis and Brook Lopez than they did without them. Mo Harkless is still here. So yeah, better upside for those average fill-in guys like Aminu, um, Zach Collins, Evan Turner. Those guys are gone because they weren't getting it done. They have more upside. Um, and yeah, just better 1 year. Want to make the definitely want to make the semifinals. I think they can do it. They have a nice. They're very guard and center heavy, but I think that their forwards are much more improved. And even if they don't, have much success, Nurkic, McCollum, Lillard, and Isaac is a great four-man group they can move forward with because Brooks is a free agent. All right, the actual NBA champions are here, but there's no Durant, so expect different. Even though there's still. Okay, so my my controller unplugged briefly, but this team still has that legendary big three of Curry, Thompson, and Draymond. Very nice, very good group. So there's no Durant, but they did get Andrew Wiggins, and they did get Zach Randolph. Kind of fair, because they will be worse. That's the intention, but that's not hurting them really. They're filling out the starting lineup, which they needed, getting a better center. So yeah, they fill out just not by being a powerhouse. That's kind of the goal. Letting another team have a chance at we don't want them winning a third title in 4 years. We want someone else making it. But this team needs to remain competitive as a legitimate owner. Curry and Thompson, best backcourt ever. They have tons of three-point shooting between them. They're so dominant. Best guard combo right now. Wiggins, very nice athletic small forward. I can see this being a great piece for them moving forward because these guys will be around, and this guy's gonna maybe develop into something close to a Durant for them. Draymond, defensive force. Randolph. They get an inside scorer, which they did not have at all in the Dynasty era. Sean Livingston back up. Lance Stevenson is here to provide that edge. He's a great fit for Golden State because he's sort of an attitude guy that can do it all. In a limited role, this is a great backup player. Vince Carter, I think his now 22nd season, and in here it's probably his 20th, but we need to get Vince Carter a championship. So they put him on Golden State as opposed to the Atlanta Hawks. He was on the Kings. So yeah, let's just let him be better here. David West is still here. A lot of guys that want rings but never had them. Zaza and McGee have such limited minutes. It's unbelievable. These guys are a lot better. Quinn Cook is still here. So yeah, good bench. Very deep. Great starting lineup. I expect this team to make the NBA Conference Finals in the West for sure, giving other teams trouble. If they're too dominant, I will definitely make a move because I don't want them to make the finals. That would just make me sick because they'd be still good next year, even with worse players. And the last team is the Washington Wizards, who are starting on a high note because they got very competitive. Finally, Marc Gasol shows up here. So Marc Gasol completes a tremendous three-man group. This trio is phenomenal. No Oubre, no Porter, no Gortat, but you improve with Marc Gasol and some Austin Rivers on the bench. That three-man guard rotation's lethal. So Wall going to be hurt next year and beyond. We don't know if he'll be the same. We still don't. He's still out. The Wizards are having a hard decline because of it. But if we know that, we can go heavy. And the Wizards have just been making semifinal after semifinal after semifinal. So what's really going to get them to the conference finals for the first time? Maybe a Marc Gasol, hopefully. So they had an average roster that was an average playoff roster. wasn't going anywhere, but they have a lot more potential with Gasol. So they have star scorer, passer, excellent shooter, and perimeter player. Justin Holiday's going to defend. Nice veteran. Can provide some new face instead of some youth, because the youth wasn't helping them. That's what I think Washington really regrets in real life. That's another story. JaMychal Green. This is a pretty cheap power forward. He just plays a bunch of minutes. He's for defense. But Marc Gasol is really the main man, the inside scorer who can defend the rim. I see that doing very well. Austin Rivers, they really wanted to... It's kind of cheap to just say, we don't really have a bench. Let's get one great player and play him a bunch of minutes. So off the bench, Austin Rivers is going to be a hefty load. Frank Kaminsky, I mean, let's get him on a winning team because he just looks like a terrible player on another team. Jody Meeks can score. Bertans can shoot. MCW is here as like a very limited player. These guys aren't terrible. They're veterans. This team needs to make the conference finals for the Gasol trade to be worth it. Otherwise, they just threw away Kelly Oubre and Otto Porter for nothing. And they probably need to, if they're on the right trajectory, I imagine that they'll trade Bertans, who has a nice future, for something else on the bench that might be useful. But this trio can get it done. And that is it. Thank you for watching the whole thing. The season starts on Tuesday. That is a big recap. My NBA Finals prediction, I will go with in the East. Oh man, how do you go against LeBron? Well, it's clear that the West is much better this particular year. The East is very hard to choose from. I'm gonna say that the I'm going with the Toronto Raptors in the East. They're the most complete, and they have a nice playoff roster. And then in the West, I think that the Clippers, that one-year monster in Chris Paul, Cousins, Love. That team is so deep and has so much star power. You always forget Will Williams is even there. Yeah, that's my prediction. That'd be great because those teams don't have a title and never made the never made the finals. But that is it. So on Tuesday night, we will run through the first week of the season. It's like 5 days, 6 days. It's 6 days from Tuesday to Sunday of games, and we'll see how the first team did. All right, that is all.